Now it's time to go over the arms, and what better arm to start off with than the toaster. The toaster is a medium weight glove type arm with a fire attribute. You can shoot straight forward and cover it left and right. You can also aim it higher by holding back. It has a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 120. With the fire attribute, you can use it to knock opponents down, making them lose any charge they had and making them lose their footing. Now, there's something important I want to say here. There's actually a way to power up an arm. I'll get into more detail on how you can do this later on, but when an arm is powered up, it will deal more damage and will be sent out faster than it would normally. For the toaster, when it's powered up, it will do a base damage of 100 and do charge damage of 130. Like I said, I'll go into more detail on how you can power up an arm later on, but for now, I'm just giving you the numbers. Now it's time to go over how this arm works during Rush, but for those who don't know what a Rush is, let me explain. A Rush is pretty much a special move that allows you to release a flurry of punches on your opponent to do massive damage. You're able to use a Rush when your Rush meter is full. The Rush meter fills up as the more you punch, and it will go up more if you connect to the punch or if you can punch yourself. When the toaster is used in a Rush, you can rapidly launch a flurry of punches. Now it's time to go over the Boomerang. The Boomerang is a medium weight curving type arm with the wind attribute. Unlike the toaster, it cannot be shot straight out, only at an arc. This can be good for hitting opponents hiding behind obstacles, however. You can control how big of an arc you can throw it out at, but you can't curve the arm in another direction after shooting it out. The Boomerang has a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 90. When it's upgraded, it has a base damage of 90 and a charge damage of 100. With the wind attribute, you can send opponents flying through the air, leaving them helpless till they hit the ground. While they are flying through the air, you are open to attack. When used in a Rush, you send out a tornado that hits multiple times and launches opponents up. Last but not least, we have the Tri-Bolt. The Tri-Bolt is a lightweight multi-hit arm with a stun attribute. You can hit opponents a max of 2 times, with the following hit being less damage. Due to its wide range, it can be good at hitting dashing opponents, but can be avoided easily by jumping. Depending on when it's hit, it is possible for only one piece of the Tri-Bolt to be blocked and the others to continue on to hit the opponent. The Tri-Bolt only hits 2 times during base damage. The first hit will deal 70 damage, while the second hit will do 35. When charged, it hits for a solid 110. When upgraded, its base damage is 80 for the first hit, 40 for the second, and charged it hits for 120. With the stun attribute, you can stun opponents in place for a split second, allowing for an easy follow-up hit. This will also stop any shot-out arms in the air for the same amount of time. When used in a Rush, the Tri-Bolt releases a flurry of punches. Now it's time to go over the Sparky. The Sparky is a medium-weight glove-type arm with the electric attribute. It works just like the toaster in how it moves, so you can curve it left or right, or aim it higher by holding back. The Sparky doesn't actually do any extra damage when charged, so by default it does a damage of 90, when upgraded it does a damage of 100. With the electric attribute, you can disable both your opponent's arms, leaving them wide open for attack. A good follow-up for this would either be a grab or a rush attack. When used in a Rush, the Sparky lets you release a flurry of punches. Next up, we have the Popper. The Popper is a lightweight multi-hit arm with the wind attribute. It moves similar to the Sparky without the ability to aim higher. It can hit a max of 2 times and has a rather wide range. First hit deals 70 damage with the following of hitting 35. When charged, it'll deal 110. When upgraded, the first hit will hit for 80 damage, second hit for 40, and the charge will then hit for 120. When used in a Rush, the Popper hits multiple times, locking the opponent in place before finally blowing them away. And finally, we have the SLAMAMANDER. The SLAMAMANDER is a medium-weight whip-type arm with a fire attribute. It can be shot straight forward or at an arc. You can't change the direction it goes after it's thrown, but you can tilt the arm slightly, which may be what you need to hit your opponent. It has a normal damage of 80 and charge damage of 110. When upgraded, it does base damage of 90 and charge damage of 120. When used in a Rush, the SLAMAMANDER will lock opponents in place while it hits them multiple times and rises them up. Now it's time to go over his arms, and the first arm we got here is the CHAKRAM. The CHAKRAM is a medium weight curving type arm with a stun attribute. It moves just like the boomerang, so it can only be shot on an arc, and it can't change its direction afterward. It has a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 100. When it's upgraded, it has a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 110. When using the rush, you release a flurry of punches. Next up, we have the BUFF. The BUFF is a medium weight glove type arm. It moves just like the Toaster and the Sparky, but its curving ability is much better than other glove type arms. The BUFF has no attribute attached to it, so when it's charged up, it buffs up in size. It has a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it has charge base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. When using the rush, you release a flurry of punches. And finally, we have the Tri-Blast. The Tri-Blast is a lightweight multi-hit arm with the explosion attribute. It works just like the Tri-Bolt in how it moves, so you can pivot left and right. And just like the Tri-Bolt, it can be great for hitting dashing opponents. With the explosion attribute, after the arm hits, it will cause an explosion that causes more damage. Even if the arm doesn't make contact, as long as it's close enough, it will still explode. This can be great for knocking opponents out of the rush, because even if they block the initial hit by activating the rush, they won't be able to block the explosion unless they got it. The explosion attribute also works as a double-edged sword, however. If the explosion arm is charged and hit before it is thrown, it will explode and deal damage to you. Tri-Blast has a base damage of 70 for the first hit and 35 damage for the second hit. When charged, it deals 70 damage for the first hit, and the explosion will deal 50 damage. When it's upgraded, base damage will have 80 for the first hit, 40 for the second, and when it's charged, it will deal 80 damage for the first, and the explosion will deal 50 damage. When using the rush, you will release a flurry of punches with the last hit causing a big explosion. Now let's go over the arms. First up we got the MEGATON. The MEGATON is a heavyweight, heavy type arm with no attribute. It's big and heavy, making it great for blocking light or medium weight arms. It is slower compared to most other arms though, so keep that in mind. When trying to hit your opponent, it moves just like glove type arms like the Toaster or the Sparky. Since it has no attribute, when it's charged it gets even bigger, but it also becomes even slower. It has a base damage of 110 and charge damage of 130. When it's upgraded, it has a base damage of 120 and charge damage of 140. When using the rush, the MEGATON drills into opponents, hitting them multiple times. Next up is the RETORCHER. The RETORCHER is a lightweight multi-hit arm with the fire attribute. It fires 3 shots right after each other. Just like the Tri-Bolt and the Tri-Blast, it's possible to only block 1 shot with your arm. It can hit 3 times when uncharged, 2 when, and only 2 when it is. It has a base damage of 70 for the first hit, 35 for the second, and 20 for the third. When charged, it hits for 100 damage on the first hit and 20 on the second. When it's upgraded, the first hit will hit for 80 damage, the second hit will hit for 40, and third will hit for 20. When charged, the first hit will hit for 110, the second hit for 20. When using a rush, you release a rapid fire of shots. And finally, we got the Phoenix. The Phoenix is a medium weight curving type arm with the fire attribute. Unlike other curving arms like the Boomerang, the Phoenix can be shot in a trajectory of up and down as well as left and right. The Phoenix is one of the fastest curving arms in the game, but if it is blocked, it takes quite a while for it to come back. It deals a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 110. When it's upgraded, it deals a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 120. When used in a rush, the Phoenix launches at opponents, and when it connects, it fires into them again and again, locking them in place. So far we've seen arm types of glove, heavy, curving, and multi-shot. These are all the visual types of arms classified by Nintendo. But we're coming up to some arms that weren't classified under any type of arm by Nintendo. So because of this, a lot of these types coming up were actually classified by fans. So I'm going to leave a link in the description down below where you can see the list of all arm types to see which ones are official or not. So, and I'm going to be using these types of arms just for a better description. So if you want to know which ones are real or not, official or not, click the link in the description below. Now after all that, let's go over the arms, and first up we got the Dragon. The Dragon is a medium weight beam type arm with a fire attribute. When shot out, it pauses for a brief second to lock on the opponent before firing a laser. The Dragon won't move from its spot, but it can curve the laser. If you are close enough to your opponent, you can actually punch them with the Dragon's head. This doesn't change the amount of damage that's dealt, but it does give the Dragon a good opportunity to counterattack when your opponent tries to corner you. The Dragon deals a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 120. When it's upgraded, it deals base damage of 100 and charge damage of 130. When used in a rush, the laser becomes much bigger and hits multiple times. Next up, we got the Megawatt. The Megawatt is a heavyweight, heavy type arm with the electric attribute. It works just like the Megaton in how it moves, and just like the Megaton, it gets bigger and slower when charged. But be warned, the Megawatt moves even slower than the Megaton. It has a base damage of 110 and charge damage of 120. When upgraded, it has base damage of 120 and charge damage of 130. When used in a rush, it drills into opponents, hitting multiple times. And finally, we have the Ram. The Ram is a medium weight curving type arm with a fire attribute. It moves just like the CHAKRAM, so it can't be fired straight out, only at an arc. But you can still control how big an arc you throw it at. It has a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 110. When upgraded, it has a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 120. When used in a rush, you release a flurry of punches. Now let's get into the arms, and first up we got the Revolver. The Revolver is a lightweight multi-shot arm with the electric attribute. It works just like the RETORCHER, so it fires 3 shots right after another, and it can hit up to 3 times. Since the Revolver's shots hits right after another, it makes it a little difficult to take advantage of the opening the electric attribute normally gives you. You will only get to take advantage of this if only 1 shot hits, otherwise you will just knock the opponent down. It is a base damage of 70 for the first hit, 35 for the second, and 20 for the third. When charged, it hits for 70 damage for the first, 35 for the second, and 20 for the third. When it's upgraded, it is 80 damage for the first hit, 40 for the second, and 20 for the third, and it does the exact same amount of damage when charged. When using a rush, you'll release a rapid fire of shots. Next up we got a new type of arm here, the WHAMMER. The WHAMMER is a heavyweight hammer type arm with a stun attribute. When shot out, the WHAMMER locks onto opponents and slams down on them just like a hammer. And the homing on them is surprisingly good. It is a base damage of 100 and charge damage of 120. When upgraded, it does a base damage of 100 and charge damage of 130. When using a rush, the WHAMMER slams down multiple times, locking the opponents in place. Next up, we got something else that's finally new, the Homie. The Homie is a medium weight missile type arm with the explosion attribute. As the name suggests, the Homies home in on the opponent. It is a base damage of 70, and when charged, the explosion deals an extra 50 damage. When it's upgraded, it deals 80, and the explosion will deal an extra 50 damage as well as that. When used in the rush, the Homies ram into the opponent before releasing an explosion that deals massive damage. Now let's go over the arms, and first up we got the CHILLA. The CHILLA is a medium weight glove type arm with the ice attribute. As you can probably guess, it works just like the toaster in how it moves. With the ice attribute, you can freeze opponents, slowing them down and preventing them from charging. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it is base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. When using the rush, you release a flurry of punches. Next up, we got an arm that's perfect for a rainy day, the PARASOL. The Parasol is a medium weight umbrella type arm with the wind attribute. It works a lot like a glove type arm for the most part, other than the fact it has a bit of a slow start. The Parasol has a rather wide hitbox, making it great for blocking light armor arms. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it does base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. When used in a rush, the Parasol drills into opponents multiple times before setting them flying. And finally, we have the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is a medium weight carry type arm with the electric attribute. As you can probably guess, it works just like the Phoenix in how it moves, so it can be shot in an arc from left to right as well as up and down. Just like the Phoenix, the Thunderbirds take a bit of time to retract when blocked. There's a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 80 as well. When upgraded, it is based on charge damage of 90. When using a rush, the Thunderbird will fly into opponents again and again, locking them in place. Now it's time to go over the arms, and first up we got the SEEKIE. The SEEKIE is a medium weight missile type arm with the electric attribute. It works just like the homie in how it moves, so it will lock onto opponents. Just like the homie, it will explode when charged. Since the electric attribute, the explosion will disable your opponent's arms. Since the explosion counts as a second hit, it will most likely knock your opponent down, so you won't be able to take advantage of your opponent's arms being disabled. However, if your opponent is a heavyweight, due to the non-flinching ability, the explosion won't knock them down. It is a base damage of 70, and when charged, the explosion will do an extra 40 damage. When upgraded, it is base damage of 80, and the explosion will once again do an extra 40 damage. When used in a rush, the SEEKIE causes an explosion that deals massive damage. Next up, we got the Cracker. The Cracker is a lightweight multi-shot arm with a fire attribute. It works just like the Popper in how it moves, and just like the Popper, it can hit 2 times uncharged. There's a base damage of 70 for the first hit and 35 for the second. When charged, it'll deal 120 damage. When upgraded, it deals 80 damage for the first hit and 40 for the second, and charge damage of 130. When using a rush, the Cracker hits multiple times, locking the opponent in place. And last but not least, we have the BUBB. The BUBB is a medium weight glove type arm. When charged, it buffs up in size. That's really it. The BUBB is the most basic arm in the game. It doesn't even have the extra capping ability like the buff does. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it does base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. When using a rush, you release a flurry of punches. Now after all that, let's get into the arms, and first up we have the SLAMAMANDER. The SLAMAMANDER is a medium weight whip type arm with the wind attribute. It works just like the SLAMAMANDER in how it moves, so you can shoot it straight to the side or shoot it straight forward. It is a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 90. When upgraded, it has base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When using a rush, you slap them over and over, locking them in place. Next up we have the HYDRA. The HYDRA is a lightweight multi-shot arm with a fire attribute. It looks a lot like the Tri-Bolt, except its shots are vertical instead of horizontal. This makes it great for dealing with opponents who like to jump a lot. Just like the Tri-Bolt, it is possible to only block one shot of the HYDRA. It's rare, but the HYDRA can potentially hit 3 times uncharged. It is a base damage of 70 for the first hit, 35 for the second, and 20 for the third. When charged, it will deal 100 damage. When upgraded, the first hit will deal 80 damage, the second will deal 40, and the third will deal 20, and charge damage will be 110. When using a rush, you hit opponents multiple times before setting them flying. Due to the vertical height, they can be great for juggling. And finally, we have the COOLERANG. The COOLERANG is a medium weight cupping type arm with the ice attribute. It works just like the BOOMERANG, so it can only be shot at an arc. It has base damage of 80 and charge damage of 90. When upgraded, it has base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When using a rush, you throw out a tornado that hits multiple times and sends opponent up. Now let's go over the arms, and first up we got something that's just about as weird, awkward, and questionable as Helix himself, the BLORB. The BLORB is a heavyweight, heavy type arm with the blind attribute. The BLORB, when shot up, will bounce toward the opponents. If you hold back when throwing them, you can throw them in a bigger arc. Due to the movement, it can be a little tricky to block arms with them. It doesn't deal any extra damage when charged, so it'll deal 100 damage normally and only 110 damage when upgraded. With the blind attribute, you can temporarily block your opponent's vision. When using a rush, the BLORB slam into opponents, hitting multiple times. A quick note about the rush: while most heavy arms will deal extra damage on grabs when upgraded, for whatever reasons the BUBB does not. I don't know why this is the case, but BLORBs will not deal extra damage like other heavy arms will. Next up, we have the Ice Dragon. The Ice Dragon is a medium weight beam type arm with the Ice attribute. As its name suggests, it works just like the dragon, so it'll pause for a second before firing a beam at the opponent. If you're up close, you can punch them directly with the Ice Dragon. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it is base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. When using a rush, the Ice Dragons release huge beams that hit multiple times. And last but not least, we have another new type of arm, the Guardian. The Guardian is a heavyweight shield type arm with the electric attribute. When thrown out, he will slowly move towards the opponent. The Guardian is able to block up to 3 shots before getting knocked down, regardless of the arm's weight. While the Guardian is slowly moving towards the opponent, you can throw it out again to have it quickly go a short distance. It will retract after this whether it has hit the opponent or not. It is a base damage of 80 and it is charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it is base damage of 90 and charge damage of 110. When using a rush, the Guardian slams into opponents, hitting multiple times. Now let's get into the arms, and first up we got the NADE. The NADE is a medium weight glove type arm with the explosion attribute. The NADE works a lot like other glove type arms with one exception. The NADE does not have a toggling system. Normally arms will aim towards the opponent on their own, without having them. The NADE does not, so you will need to hit used to having complete control of your arms. It is base damage of 90 and when charged it will deal an extra 50 damage from the explosion. When upgraded it is 100 damage and the explosion will deal an extra 50 damage on top of that. When using the rush, you release a flurry of punches with the last one causing an explosion. Next up, we have the Roaster. The Roaster is a medium weight glove type arm with the fire attribute. If you think it's just a reskin of the Toaster, think again. Just like the NADE, it has no targeting system, and to make up for that, it deals more damage. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 130. When upgraded, it is base damage 100 and charge damage 140. When using a rush, you release a flurry of punches. And finally, we have the KABLAMMER. The KABLAMMER is a heavyweight hammer type arm with the explosion attribute. Unlike the last two arms, this one does have a targeting system, a fairly good one to boot. And it moves just like the WHAMMER, so if you know how to use that, you'll be fine with this one. It is base damage 100, and when it's charged, it does an extra 50 damage from an explosion. And if you can probably guess, from being upgraded, it is 110 damage, and again, the explosion needs an extra 50 damage. When using a rush, KABLAMMER stamps down 4 times with the last one causing an explosion. And now, let's get into the arms, and first up we have the FUNCHUCH. The FUNCHUCH is a medium weight nunchuck type arm with the stun attribute. When shot out, it spins towards the opponent. The FUNCHUCH can actually be shot out 2 different ways. When on the ground, it spins vertically and has very good homing. When using the air, it spins straight forward in a wall-like circle with a wide hitbox. It is a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it is base damage of 90 and charge damage of 110. When using a rush, you release many shots that are great breaking shields. And next up we have the BIFFLER. The BIFFLER is a lightweight multi-shot arm with a blind attribute. It works just like the HYDRA, so its vertical reach is great for dealing with jumping opponents. When it blinds opponents, it makes 3 circular stamps of biff. It does 70 damage for the first hit, 35 for the second, and 20 for the third. And when charged, it does 90 damage. When it's upgraded, the first hit will deal 80, the second hit will deal 40, and the third will deal 20. And a charged hit will deal 100 damage. When using a rush, they hit multiple times before sending the opponent flying. And finally, we have the CLAPBACK. The CLAPBACK is a heavyweight shield type arm. When shot out, it stays in place, always facing the opponent. It can block up to 3 hits, and any arms it blocks gets bounced back at the opponent. If the clapback's charged, all bounce backed arms will be charged as well. It does a base damage of 80 and doesn't deal any extra damage when charged, but upgraded it will deal 90 damage. When used in a rush, the clapback slams into opponents, hitting them multiple times. Now let's get into the arms, and we got something completely new here, the Scorpio. The Scorpio is a medium weight unique type arm with a new attribute, Poison. When shot out, it will crawl on the floor towards opponents, leaping at them when close enough. When shot in the air, they will fly towards opponents. It is a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When upgraded, it is base damage of 100 and charge damage of 110. With the Poison attribute, you poison opponents to cause damage over time and make the movement a little clunky. You can actually increase the damage you deal over time if you continue to hit them with more poison. When using a rush, the Scorpios fly at opponents, hitting multiple times. Next up, we have the GLUSHER. The GLUSHER is a heavyweight, heavy type arm with a Poison attribute. It works just like the BLORB in how it moves, so it will bounce towards opponents. The GLUSHER has a bit of an explosion effect that deals 50 damage when charged. This doesn't stack, however, and will only hit the opponent if you're just barely out of range or if they try to block with a rush. Just like the BLORB, even though they are heavy arms, they don't increase grab damage when upgraded. It is a base damage of 100 and charge damage of 120. When upgraded, it is base damage 110 and charge damage 130. When using a rush, the GLUSHER slam into opponents, hitting multiple times. And finally, we have the SKULLY. The SKULLY is a lightweight, unique type arm with a Poison attribute. The SKULLY is the fastest arm in the game. To make up for this, it doesn't curve too well, and it does less damage than any other arm. It is a base damage of 70 and charge damage of 80. When upgraded, it is base damage of 80 and charge damage of 90. When using the rush, you release a flurry of punches. Now let's get into the arms, and first up we have the LOKJAW. The LOKJAW is a heavyweight, unique type arm with the Explosion attribute. When charged, the LOKJAW fires a projectile before ramming into opponents. The projectile explodes after impact. Unlike other explosion type arms, the LOKJAW will not explode if it's hit when charged. The projectile's explosion can hit you though, so you do need to watch your distance. There's a base damage of 100, and when charged, the initial hit will do 100 damage, the explosion will cause 50, and if you manage to hit with the LOKJAW again after that, you'll do another 20 damage. When upgraded, it is base damage 110, and you can probably guess, when charged, first hit deals 110 damage, the explosion costs 50, and again, if you manage to hit the LOKJAW after that, you'll do another 20 damage. When using a rush, the LOKJAW will release a giant projectile that hits multiple times. Next up is the Parabola. The Parabola is a medium weight umbrella type arm with the electric attribute. It works a lot like the Parasol, other than while the Parasol has a bit of a slow start, the Parabola has a quick start but slows down before impact. It is a base damage of 90, and when upgraded, deals 100 damage. It deals no extra damage when charged. When using a rush, the Parabola drills into opponents with excellent homing. And finally, the BRRCHUK. The BRRCHUK is a medium weight nunchuck type arm with the ice attribute. It works just like the FUNCHUCH, other than that its movement between being on the ground or in the air are reversed. It is a base damage of 80 and charge damage of 90. When upgraded, it has a base damage of 90 and charge damage of 100. When using a rush, the BRRCHUKs hit multiple times, ending great and breaking shields.